Thank you so much. Muchas gracias. Yes, we're very happy to be here talking about the marketing crypto assets regulation, which you might have all heard about already. Is the major regulatory framework being introduced by the European Union, and that is finally providing regulatory certainty and clear rules for the crypto asset industry. And we're basically 1 year into MiCA now, and we're very happy to be talking about what is working, what is not working, what might be some areas that need to be revised, and maybe answer some questions from the audience. We also would love to hear from you, maybe at the end of our initial conversation. So if you have your questions, please don't be shy and ask them so that we can actually have a bit of a interesting conversation. And that's actually what we're going to try to do today, have an actual debate, an actual conversation, not too structured. So I like to have my panelists and speakers go one after the other, talking and potentially disagreeing with each other, which is always makes it for a nice panel. So once again, my name is Tommaso Stazzi. I'm the Policy Director at Blockchain for Europe. Blockchain for Europe is a trade association, so representing the blockchain industry, the crypto companies in Brussels with the European policymakers. So MiCA has been obviously our bread and butter for the last few years. And I'm very actually honored to be working with a lot of these people here, a lot of these entities that are members of our associations, and we're doing some very interesting work together in Brussels, and it's great to have them here today on stage. But without further ado, we get started. Maybe a first quick round of introductions from our panelists. They can tell you a bit more who they are, where they're working, what their entity is focused on, and then we can start talking about MiCA. So, Vivek, you want to get it started?
Sure, thanks, Tommaso. So, first of all, it's an honor to be here, and thank you for having us. It's always good to be having you as a moderator, because you are assured that it's going to be a good conversation.
Thank you.
And again, I'm from BSV Association. Those that don't know us, we are a layer 1 blockchain. I represent as head of business. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'll pass it on to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lucia Suarez. I'm the head of compliance for crypto and digital assets initiatives, and I cover globally the Santander Group.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Gahan. I'm the MD for Europe operations for Kraken. I'm based in Ireland. For those of you, and I'm aware that this event has a kind of nexus of crypto OGs and more newer entrants into the space and TradFi and so on. So Kraken is one of the world's oldest and most performant and most secure crypto exchanges. We've been around for many years, 14 plus years, and we have a long history in Europe particularly of being a market leader in euro liquidity and easy payment rails for our clients across Europe. And particularly in Spain, I guess, as well. We've been registered with the Bank of Spain since 2023 and investing in the market here locally. And more recently this summer, we've passported our MiCA CASP license, which I guess is what the panel is about, into Spain, and are offering our diverse and extensive product suite into Spanish clients, through that entity. So yeah, excited to be here to talk about what is and what's not working with MiCA.
Okay, thank you. Oliver?
Yeah, hi guys, my name is Oliver Stauber. I run KuCoin in Europe as their CEO here. We are running for the MiCA license out of Austria, Vienna, so we have a headquarters there. And yeah, before that I used to be a qualified lawyer, which comes in handy when it comes to MiCA and all the other regulatory requirements we need to fulfill, because it's not only about MiCA, there are a lot of other topics we need to cover. We also have a quite decent product suite, which is not only covered by MiCA, but also MiFID and other license regimes. So yeah, happy to be here and looking forward to a nice discussion with you guys.
Thank you. And Christian?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. Christian Menda, I'm Director for Chain Analysis for Spain, Portugal, and Andorra. And well, pretty much Chain Analysis is the leader in analytics regarding blockchain. We work alongside law enforcement, regulators, exchanges, TradFi, and every single company that plays something in the ecosystem. And yeah, very excited to be here. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. I have to say this is pretty pretty stellar panel, right? So we have some big names in terms of entities, some very important roles and everything. But what I think it's very interesting is that we have different type of entities, right? We have the biggest changes, the trading platforms that maybe everybody in the retail space will know, of course. But then we also have the blockchain analytics companies. We have the, let's say, more traditional financial institutions that are looking at MiCA, looking at the blockchain space with a lot more of interest into developing, and some other type of different entities that are, looking at MiCA, of course, looking at the blockchain and Web3 space, but maybe not in the same exact way as a centralized provider might do. But let's get started. Let's talk about MiCA. You probably all heard again what MiCA is. I don't think we need to do much of an introduction. But let's hear from our panelists, what do you think about MiCA? What's your views? How does MiCA actually impacted your business, if it has? And yeah, so let's start from there, and then we can see what's good and what's not. Adam.
Do you want me to take that?
You, go ahead, Vivek, if you want to get started.
From the BSV Association, we kind of welcome any kind of compliance or regulatory framework that makes sense. Having said that, one of the things that we've actually going to be announcing quite soon, and I think this is a great platform to do so as well, is we've done our MiCA white paper as well. We just need to go through the submission process of all of this. And again, the idea behind that is to create a bit of trust, and I think this kind of offers that framework and builds that kind of stepping stone. But again, like everything, it's in its early stages, and I think there's quite a lot to be done in that aspect. But again, time will tell, and we'll see how that goes. But from our side, we think it shows kind of clarity, and again, we want developers, institutions, enterprises to adopt the technology, and this kind of builds that foundation for it.
Great. Lucia, you want to go next?
So we can look it from micro and macro perspective. So let's go.
Let's take us on this journey.
Santander. Well, we are regulated entities, so for us, it opens the door to offer another type of asset class, which is really, really nice. So basically, you already have the client, you already have the experience, and now you can offer something that is interesting for these clients from different points of view. So you can have portfolio diversification, etc. So it's really interesting for us. As you know, as a regulated entity, we cannot offer nothing that is not regulated. So that's the benefit for us. If we look at the macro space, for me, the big win is that it brings kind of customer protection. So the thing is, in the past, there has always been this kind of discussion that crypto is very, very dangerous, that crypto is not well explained, that there is, if something goes wrong, there is nobody to call, no attention to the client. And MiCA has brought this kind of security in that part that is really important so that we have mass adoption. Let's look at Spain. The average of the people that have the money are people above 40 or 30 years old. So you need to bring them security so that they can get into the space. So that's one of the big impacts for me, for the society of MiCA.
Thank you so much. So we already heard some interesting perspectives, right? And especially when you look at a traditional financial player like Grupo Santander that was already regulated for providing obviously financial services, but now, thanks to the MiCA framework, they also had the opportunity to provide a different set of assets, different type of services to their users, which I'm sure are becoming more and more interested in these new products. But then, probably when we go to our next panelist, MiCA is really even more fundamental, right? And it gave them the legitimacy to do what they're doing, but also maybe you can already start telling us a bit about the licensing process and challenges. I think it could be interesting.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I mean, like MiCA, is something that Kraken had advocated for many, many years, and both of my panelists who've already spoken talked about regulatory certainty and things like that. So Kraken has a long history of working closely with regulators in Europe and in Ireland with the Central Bank of Ireland, which is our primary regulatory hub. So we had that certainty across our product suite, with the exception, I guess, of many of the main crypto offerings. So we had an EMI going back a number of years, which provided a clear rule book for how we handle fiat, on-ramp, off-ramp, safeguarding client funds in the kind of fiat space to help bridge into that crypto economy. We had a MiFID II license entity out of Cyprus to offer financial instruments under MiFID, and this was the kind of missing piece which we have now. So it provides that kind of clear rule book, codifies practices that Kraken had advocated for and had in many. So now we have a level playing field. The consumer across Europe knows what they're getting from an authorized CASP and knows what kind of consumer protective measures are in place, whether it's how we handle custody funds or market abuse, market surveillance, and disclosures, things like that. White papers, which was mentioned there. You can find hundreds. We have hundreds of digital assets offered to our clients, and you can find hundreds of them on our website, and they've been submitted to an NCA and they've been put on the ESMA register. So like the client, the consumer knows what they're getting, right? So it's a clear roadmap. But what that allows Kraken to do, who obviously have been in this space for a long, long time, it really allows us to invest in accelerating our roadmap of innovative products for clients in Europe, that certainty. So look at and anyone who's followed closely over the last year will have really noticed our product velocity, really, really kind of picking up. And like if we think of examples in Europe, we have what's called a Kraken Embed product, which allows banks, banks or other fintechs that don't offer crypto to seamlessly integrate with our backend via an API and leverage our technology and offer it to their clients. And I guess the biggest and best example of that is Bunk, which is a Dutch neobank and has many, many clients, and is now offering some of our crypto services to their Dutch clients using our technology in a kind of seamless way. So Lucia, if you want me to connect you with our biz dev guys, it was actually Victor who was on the panel just before me. We can make those connections. So I'm Santander, have many clients across Europe and beyond, so and Spain. So it'd be great to get that offering via partnership. So we'll see about that. But then another example of an innovative product that we're offering under our MiCA framework is our bundles product, which is for the consumer who wants to kind of set and forget, appropriate with their risk levels and suitability for the product. They can go and choose to invest in a certain basket of cryptos, and then it's associated and linked to their risk level and risk tolerance, and then it's rebalanced monthly. They don't have to think about it. So that's like a real kind of innovative step forward, and albeit not under the MiCA framework. Recently we've launched XStocks, which is our version of tokenized equities, and that's offered out of our MiFID entity in Cyprus. So that regulation maybe doesn't attract many people and find it that interesting, but that it is underpinning us, allowing us or Kraken being able to offer these innovative products to the market in Europe and Spain particularly. So I get excited about it, at least anyway.
Yeah, there's not that many people like us probably that get excited about regulation in the crypto industry, but the more you understand, the more you read, the more I can promise you that it is exciting, at least in the intentions, right? And I think we're also going to get towards these points, the intention of the European Union in Brussels, of the European Commission and so on, of providing all of this regulatory certainty for the industry was very noble, right? And I think, as I think Brian was also saying, this regulatory framework was also meant to attract businesses, attract companies, attract talent and developers to finally build in Europe and take a lead in this so-called Web3 race. But let's hear whether we're really going in that direction. I don't know, Oli, if you already want to share some thoughts on your experience with MiCA, with the licensing process, but if you already want to mention anything that you think might not be working as well in the MiCA framework, I think our audience will love that.
Yeah, happy to do so. So you see the difference between this nice guy Brian and myself. He already received all his licenses, and they can talk a lot about products. We are still running for the license and getting it soon, hopefully. So I will not talk too much about products and offerings. However, this is exactly what MiCA is here for as well, and MiFID and all the other regulations. But what we need to do, and maybe put this discussion in a little bit different direction. MiCA is nice. MiCA is here to build trust, and trust is the foundation we all build on to get a lot of customers, hopefully to serve a lot of customers in a very compliant and decent way. So it's the baseline. However, MiCA is not MiCA, unfortunately. I'm in this game since a long time already, and I was already advising even a lot of people in Brussels back in the days when I said, guys, if you want to do MiCA, and if you want to do regulate crypto itself, you need to have this level playing field, which we are used to in TradeFi since many years, with MiFID, with EMIs, with other stuff, with banking regulations. But if you're not able to establish this level playing field, we're going to have a hard time, all of us, especially the huge players in the world. Like, KuCoin also has more than 40 million customers globally, and also quite a bunch of in Europe already. But if there are NCAs, for example, so regulators that interpret MiCA in a different way, like, for example, the Austrian regulator, which is a very knowledgeable and good regulator, strict, but they understand our products, so to say, what we are doing, what we are offering. But if this is not the same everywhere in Europe, we're going to have a hard life, because I need to tell my guys why we do all that stuff, where we'll have already 25 people on the ground, where we have so much cost. And then somebody comes and says, oh, we do it the easy way, and we do, for example, mirroring our global order book, because we, for example, are running a broker in Europe, so not an peer-to-peer exchange, but a broker. So we have a lot of different liquidity providers, and you get always best execution on our platform. However, if this is not working, we're going to have a hard life. And this is why some of you maybe have also seen that our regulator, together with the French ones and the Italian ones, were even writing a letter together to inform the market, and it was not too much to the market, but to the other regulators maybe directed, that they please should come together and align on what they understand with MiCA and was not. And there are still a lot of topics within MiCA that are not 100% sure how to deal with or not, And on the other hand, and I need to, sorry for speaking so long, but another topic, having a bank here on the panel. So at least in Austria, we have the same regulator, we have even the same auditors at the end of the day, we have the same rules that we need to apply to, but it's impossible, still impossible, as a crypto broker or exchange to get a bank account in Austria. There are banks in Europe, neobanks more or less, that are more open to that, but even our regulator is writing letters to the banks and say, guys, that cannot be, that our regulated entities, under MiCA, are not getting bank accounts with you guys, even though they apply with the same rules. So there's still room for improvement, though MiCA is in place already. And I'm really looking forward how this is going to develop in the next couple of months.
Thank you. I think we already are hearing a couple of potential problems, potential issues, concerns. There has been some talks about, the passporting of the license, what NCAs, national competent authorities, are doing, the different approaches. So I think we're going to get into all of that and have a bit more of an open debate next. But to finish off this round, I think it's also interesting to hear the perspective of Christian and chain analysis, right? Chain analysis, they don't really have the same type of need or expectation from the MiCA framework. It's not the same type of platform, exchange, facing consumers and so on. But I think they also have a very interesting perspective, especially because of the data, right? Data can tell you an important story, and I think Christian can tell us a bit more about what MiCA is when you look at the data.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, I mean, if you look at the entrance of MiCA in the market, what we've seen is, first of all, of course, the entrance of what we call the TradFi, traditional finance players. That has raised a demand on our products, on those type of clients, because we previously didn't have that demand. And you know, through that, and what we're doing is working together with the supervisory authorities in Spain and across Europe to, you know, provide them with trainings, programs, so they can grab all the information that data-driven supervisory in real time is much more efficient than you know, the traditional reporting that comes, you know, every 6 or 9 months. So going to your point, for example, if there may be discrepancies between jurisdictions, right? If you are applying data-driven decisions, that disappears, right? So when you are approaching a specific entity to do an assessment, you need to do the assessment. If you use the tools, the appropriate tools that has the right precision of data, then you can make, you know, a good assessment of that particular entity or asset itself. So talking about assets, right, we also see a big shift, right? MiCA has came in, and then we now see a market for euro stable coins. And you know, if we look at EuroC, is the most rapid growing stable coin across Europe, and above 2,700% between January and now. So that's, you know, that's what you can see in the data, right? When you have an understanding. So we see new players, we see the new market for stable coins in Euro growing fast, and yeah, I mean, if we compare that, for example, with USDC, it's only growing 86% rate, right? So, you know, different comparison in that sense.
Maybe I jump in
Please.
here because
Yes,
this is very important for us as well. Like companies like Chainalysis, they are also here to build trust. And the last couple of years, for example, even our regulator, they were always telling everybody, you know, crypto is only here for scammers and for fraudsters and for nothing else, you know. So don't deal with crypto at all. But Chainalysis and their data, they showed that it's not used that much anymore for this kind of things, you know, for the illegal stuff. So it's, what is it nowadays? 1%, 2%, something.
Yeah, it's less than 1%.
It's really it's nothing. I mean, cash is used for money laundering much
Cash
more
is
than
king.
than anything else, you know. But we need to shift this perception, you know, and Chainalysis is very much helping us as well to gain this trust and say, guys, we have decent assets, we have good assets, good asset classes, and you can trade in a secure and safe manner on our platforms, also based on their data at the end of the day. Yeah.
People should read the book Tracers in the Dark, by the way, because the founder of Chainalysis is heavily mentioned throughout that, and it's really kind of goes deep on what Oliver's kind of talking about there, like really the maybe to the person in the street that isn't that familiar with crypto, that perception is still there, but you know, us, maybe everybody on this stage knows that's not the reality. Yeah. But that's the kind of challenge for the industry to, like, you know, educate, and whether it's regulators or just everybody in the market. And as these TradFi players come in, they will naturally obviously seek to understand that. So yeah, I just want to echo everything Oliver's saying there.
I mean, and even in TradeFi, you would not have this kind of tools like Chainalysis,
exactly,
where you can track everything, you know. I mean, you can, every coin you mint or whatever, you know, you can track until the beginning, and you can immediately flag it if it's used for illicit stuff, for example. You know, this is not ever in TradeFi.
On that one, I always put the same example. So in the traditional space, you would never know that an euro has been used by a narco like 10 hubs away.
Yeah.
With blockchain analytics tool, you can know that a Bitcoin has been used by somebody marked with high risk 10 hubs or more ago. And that opens new questions, like in the past, you can only see your counterparty. So you care about the risk of your counterparty, basically. But now, how do you evaluate things that go far beyond that? And what do you do with that information, which is the new question.
Good question. Yes.
Yeah. It's
End of the day, it's a management decision.
Also,
but at least you can do it,
Definitely, yes. An additional angle that MiCA also introduces here is the cybersecurity spec, right? So that also gives us a background on what kind of security needs to have these players in the market to avoid cases like, for example, Bybit, right? We heard about this 1,500 million hack that happened, and I think that also is going to the point that Lucia mentioned about protection for the consumer. I mean, you placing your money in a platform that you trust in, that you having the right, measurement, etc., to take care of the security, and that's another angle interesting.
Sorry to jump in, but
I
really,
love this.
I mean, I'm not with Bybit, but you need to say that this case was, massive. On the one hand of that, but on the other side, no customer was hurt at all, and it was solved within 24 hours, more or less. If we go back, for example, to TradeFi, I used to be there, so back 2008, 2009, when we had Lehman and all that stuff, I mean, it shook the world for a couple of years, and we still see the consequences of that now. And Lehman failed, but Bybit's still here and is more profitable than ever, maybe. So what I saw there is, for the banks, the consumer needed to pay that they survived. Crypto does it on their own, and they're still here, And this is a very this kind of community, and how everybody, like us as well, I don't know about Kraken, but helped each other to stabilize the system and to make the system more sustainable. It was really interesting to me as well to see this.
Yeah. But don't you feel that many of the jurisdictions are not really talking to each other, and that in order to harmonize this framework, means that's important right now, and I don't see that happening, and that's kind of creating a bit of friction in some areas. So,
Definitely, yeah.
So I think if we get to that point and we kind of like fix that, that actually could be a very good potential. Means I just see that everyone has similar ideas, but they don't get to talk to each other, which is the important part, or agree to a point.
Yeah, I think we're touching again upon a few interesting points and keywords, right? We talked about trust in the system, in the community. We talked about education, and I think education really is the most important element in everything that we're doing, in the work that we do in Brussels, but also in a lot of the work that, for example, they are doing as well in terms of educating their users, educating the communities, educating the policymakers that are taking these decisions, and that's really, I can tell you, is not an easy job. But we're getting also again to some of the issues, some of the problems, right? I think Vivek just mentioned now, there is a risk still of fragmentation, right? There is a risk of differences in the way that authorities are approaching the rules, even though there is one set of rules, and in theory, is rather like relatively clear. I'm not going to say it's perfectly clear, but it's relatively clear text. There are still a few open questions, but at the same time now, the rules are effective, but at the same and they were aiming to harmonize, right, regulatory approaches across the EU 27 member states. But are we there yet, or are we seeing some issues? Are we seeing some concerns? And this is, again, now it's an open question to anybody. Anybody that wants to jump in, talk a bit about passporting concerns. Let's do it like this. First, we talked about level playing field within the European Union, and then we should also probably talk about a level playing field globally speaking. So who wants to take this first?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you kind of touched on it there, Tommaso, as well. So the level 1 text is a level playing field and is mostly clear. Well, it's not even a long document, right? I mean, and boring people like me read this kind of stuff, right?
before going to sleep.
Yeah, but like compared to other directives and regulations and regulatory technical standards and so on, and that I've been looking at for 15, 20 years, like it's in simple, plain language mostly, and you can read it if you can read. We're a year in, or just over a year if you take it from this kind of stablecoin start, and for CASPs we're less than a year in. Most of the countries are still in their transition period. Yes, there has been some initial teething problems where there's been areas of fragmentation, but like the focus right now really should be on implementing the level 1 text as intended. And like I think there's an onus on whatever NCA it is in Europe and ESMA and so on and so forth to like make sure that as we go through this transition period, that level 1 text is implemented as intended, and then we get to kind of harmonization of supervision by whatever means that occurs. But like so like those clear rules for everyone across the EU 27 plus 3 for EEA are like applied the same way, and like we have an opportunity to do that, right? So like MiCA was game changing from the fact that like think back to the depths of COVID when this was being crafted. Like it was for me, I'd been working in TradFi and then moved into crypto. Like the thought of a pan EU single regulation for crypto was just kind of fanciful, really. So like Europe has led the way from that point. Now there's an onus on CASPs, TradFi players, people seeking to come into the space to work with NCAs, to work with ESMA, and ESMA can produce more guidance, or there can be level 2, level 3 regulation to clarify things and so on and so forth, to implement this rule book that we've been given. So I think we have an opportunity, and I think we can do it. And it's still like I would say we're still in that transition phase, and many players are not yet authorized, and so are operating under VASP regimes. So yes, there's been some teething issues, but I think we can get there.
Does everybody agree with this, or is anybody more concerned about the state of the situation?
Well, yeah, I mean, from us in Chainalysis is, we advocate for a real-time data-driven supervisory approach, which means if you follow that path, not because a company comes from, a given country, you have to make let's say prejudices or preconcepts of how they should be behaving. You go through the data, you can understand exactly what they do, and then you can add upon, right? So that's basically how we advocate supervisory authorities and regulators in Spain and across Europe to act on, right? Of course, that requires some training programs, that requires education, that requires the appropriate tools as well, of course, with the right precision, right? Because for us, the precision is quite important, right? As I said, we work with law enforcement. Of course, they use that for a different purpose. But if you are a supervisory authority, right, at some point you may want, or you may have a need to emit a fine to someone, right? Before you do that, you have to make sure that you are not looking at false positive, perhaps that entity that you're looking at is getting data that is linking them to terrorist finance, which is not true, or CSAM, or any other thing, which is not true, and you're creating a perception of that entity that is wrong, or that asset, right? So I think precision is key. And we recently have a study that was published, an independent study, where that independent study showed that the data that we provide in Chainalysis has less than 0.15% of ratio of false positive. So we're pretty proud about the data we provided. It takes us a lot of work on a day-to-day basis, but that provides the security that the industry needs to operate safely.
Yep. Indeed.
Maybe I jump on Brian's speech as well. So I agree with the level 1 text, but when it comes to details, there's still a lot of questions to be answered. I don't know, for example, when it comes to white papers, we need to assess all these white papers that we list for the tokens for. And nowadays, not all the projects for sure have their white papers. BSB for sure is a very good example that do so, because you need to every project needs to issue their white papers also with either an NCA or ESMA directly. One of the fun factors I see is from a practical point of view, ESMA still doesn't publish all the white papers that are already approved in a proper way. You will not find it. It's a CSV file. You need to search for 10 minutes to even find it. So I don't know.
The
why
register is also a CSV file as well.
So it's crazy.
It's a nightmare.
So, and when it comes to white papers, Kraken is a very good example. You do some white papers on your own because not every project has a white paper. So, but what comes if now me as KuCoin or I don't know, Binance, whoever is also putting the white papers in place, and if only a single, clause in these white papers is different, what counts then at the end of the day? So there are still a lot of things. Market surveillance, I don't know. I mean, insider trading. The two of us, we would need to inform every trade, even maybe before we do it. I mean, I'm in this space since 10 years. I deal regularly. Let's put it like this. It's really insane still.
I agree that the devil is in the details.
Yeah.
And basically, what you are mentioning about material non-public information. So, what is material non-public information in the crypto space? We were discussing about this 2 days ago at the DARTE meeting. So what do you consider MMPI in the crypto space? When do you consider the information has turned into public?
Yes, for example. Yes.
That's the key.
It's a good question.
Yeah. And basically, you need to have a clear picture on that to be able to know if you comply with MiCA in the material non-public information part or not.
Yes.
So there are lots of open elements and open questions.
But nobody can answer. So
No.
even our NCA, they are very knowledgeable, but they also say we need to align with ESMA or anybody else because they don't know, yet. But still, we need to
Even we were
adhere
discussing
to already.
Well, if it's published in the blockchain, is it considered that it got public or not? Can anybody read and understand what has been published in the blockchain or not? So many open questions just on this piece. So imagine all the others. And for me, another interesting part has been in this experience, because in our case, we got the authorization in 2 countries. For me, a very interesting point has been the combination of MiCA with DORA, with Digital Operational Resilience Act. Guys? That is an interesting point. I know.
No, don't talk about DORA, please.
So it's not just MiCA.
Raising the bar.
It's what came together with MiCA that nobody was talking about, and all of a sudden, especially you guys, I remember having discussions and asking, and what are you doing about DORA? And the people were saying, DORA, what's that?
Who's that?
So very interesting experience, especially in the concept of what is outsourcing in your target operating models. Who has to approve that critical outsourcing that may not be your core regulator for MiCA, and then it opens 2 ways for approvals. So the complexity.
But the interesting thing with that is, I need to admit, I love DORA because it. No, the only one. Other brackets.
Strong words.
Yes, but it gives, at least for me, I'm a CEO and a lawyer and stuff, but it gives clarity, You need to go in the very, very, very detail at the end of the day. You need to really understand your system and what you outsource and what not, and who approves and what not. I need to know everything, This is quite hard for a global player like KuCoin because they never did this exercise before, for sure not. Even if you have maybe one of the securest platforms in the world, but nobody was thinking from that angle, to approach that.
To that level of details.
And this is very interesting. And the fact that we all need to do that, and you, as a banker, you also need to do that, is a good thing at the end of the day.
The level playing field we were talking about earlier, right? So, I mean, again, you're probably getting more questions than answers from this panel, but that's usually what happens when we talk about MiCA, right? Because there is still a few questions, there is still a few aspects that no one just has the the perfect answer to, right? And this also comes because, as you can hear, it's the complexity of the interplay between different pieces of regulation, pre-existing pieces of regulation, new pieces of regulation and legislation that was developed with the crypto industry in mind, or others that were not, right, that were pre-existing. For example, when we look at the Payment Services Directive and the Payment Services Rules and how that interacts with MiCA when it comes to stable coins and so on. So we could throw a lot more topics here. I don't know if anybody wants to point to one that you think it's interesting or concerning, or indeed, as we were touching upon before, MiCA in the end was also the attempt of the European Union to take a bit of a lead on the global stage, right? And we're talking about the global market, of course. Crypto is a global market. Boundaries and territories don't really matter that much in the crypto space. But of course, the regulation of this industry, the regulation of the service providers, is something that is done by jurisdiction. So maybe to give a bit of an assessment of how do you all think the European Union is moving in that direction. Try to take these leads also when, at the times when there was no regulatory clarity in the United States, and this was also being perceived as a great advantage for the European Union. But do we still have that advantage, or do you think that things are changing? Open question to everyone again.
Well, probably, I think that this MiCA has given this great opportunity for growing this ecosystem here and provide those bases that are required to protect consumer and allow, TradFi to join the ecosystem, all that, right? Having that in mind, we also have to think about what is the global spec, right? I don't think we want to end up here in Europe as the isolated island of, crypto regulated, which is not in sync with the rest of the world. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done at the European level to make sure that we align also as well with the US, and we align also as well with APAC, and in a way that at the end of the day, we have somehow harmonized framework that allows this protection to be global, right? It would be, of course, maybe slightly different in some jurisdictions, but if we can get that to operate, then I think that would be a great advantage for Europe.
So I would just, and I know we've seen some media reports about the potential of opening back up MiCA, at the Parliament level, or a MiCA 2.0, or whatever you want to call it. I would definitely kind of caution against that right now, because we're still in a transition period. You talked about data-driven decision-making. Like, we need hard data to review, and the time is probably not now, because because the market is still developing and players are being authorized. It's amazing that Europe led the way, and in many ways, MiCA was a very forward-thinking regulation in that it didn't look to stifle innovation through regulating, explicitly excluded DeFi, I guess, is probably the best way to think about it. And now, wow, we've had the Genius Act in the US, again, unthinkable a few years ago. There's a market structure bill hopefully coming in the US. We know the UK are bringing something forward. So, when we have this data from the implementation of MiCA and we see what other jurisdictions do, then maybe we can look at MiCA and see what needs to be changed to ensure that there is harmonization across the world. Because crypto by its nature is borderless, right? So, I think we risk fragmentation by opening it up now, when we have a chance to kind of see how the market develops and see what's done in the other G20 jurisdictions particularly.
Thank you for saying that. Brian, maybe louder for the people in the back that are listening from the European Parliament. Do not reopen MiCA now. We need the time. We need the time. This industry needs the time to actually implement the rules, but also the authorities need the time to actually know how to supervise, implement, and enforce the rules, right? So I think that's a good message to bring us to the closing of our panel. I hope we can still take a few minutes before sending you all off to lunch, but maybe actually it's a good time to see if there is any questions in the audience for any of our panelists, if anything in our discussion generated any curiosity, please don't be shy if you want to ask anything about MiCA 2, about stablecoins, about global convergence, all of these topics, or any other challenges that we've been discussing on stage. I do not really see much from here because of the lights, but if someone does want to speak, just be very vocal about it, maybe. Yes? No? Great. Well, then we can continue a few more minutes as, until they kick us out on the stage. But maybe for last few thoughts from our panelists, what do you take from this conversation? What do you think is the most interesting point that you wanted our audience actually to keep in mind?
So for me, like in this panel, it's been very refreshing to see, like, from the data side, from the banking side, from the exchanges side, that we are kind of all aligned in the same kind of thought process. Specifically, like, again, they keep on telling me this at work, baby steps. So we need to follow those and like implement those, be secure about what we want to actually achieve. And then, as you mentioned before, 2.0 is too early stages to actually going forward for that. But we need to start thinking about it. We need to start having those conversations as well. So I think it's a bit of a mixed bag in reality. And again, talking about like doing the white paper, from our experience, we didn't have any knowledge or understanding. So we had to seek external help to help us like build this so that we can actually do it appropriately, because we didn't want to fall under the same issues that others do as well, and then go through the whole process, which is lengthy as well, costly and lengthy. But we do find that there are not that many people out there that really understand things. So it's very refreshing to see when you see one or two companies that actually help you. Some of them are on the stage around here. So it's good. But again, we need more education around all of this in order for the adoption to actually happen, which is kind of like the motto that we go with. So anyway, that's my point.
Yeah. Quick one, because I'm seeing like we are out of time.
Don't look at the clock.
Basically, MiCA has been a learning curve for all of us, public and private sector, I think. But it is true that now we have kind of an element of global competition. Genius is coming. Genius opens the door to many things that have implications for Europe, and we know that the regulators are worried about that. Oh, yes. And we also know that the regulation is slow compared with the velocity of the crypto space. So it is true, I agree, that we need to start discussing about all of these topics, especially the ones that are moving globally.
All right, thank you.
Oh yeah, I guess my very quick final thought would be, what I've said. The rule book is clear, and let's just keep innovating and investing in products that clients and customers across the EU want, because that's ultimately what will continue to drive interest in the space. So that's why I work in it and believe in it. So that's it.
Yeah, maybe from my side, I mean, just one or two sentences to the global stage. I mean, US is coming now, and they do it always. I have the feeling like EU does always want to do micromanagement. They don't want really to even define how we need to assess a white paper, what not. I mean, really, and US is just giving guardrails. Customer protection for sure, GDPR, what not. But then the market can grow. Same, for example, for MENA, doesn't matter if VARA, ADGM, all these guys, they are very innovative. For example, I mean, Austria invented the land register 200 years ago, VARA brought it on blockchain, already now. So you can transfer ownership of land and property on chain, which is a game changer at the end of the day. And don't forget about even APEC, and don't forget about China. China will also adapt at one point in time. So, and Europe still is the old lady, more or less, sorry, but tries to really to protect to the ultimate end, and maybe that's hindering innovation. And when it comes to innovation, we are also talking about new products. We are talking about tokenization of real-world assets. We have the DLT TSS regime, which is just in place, but already is going to be reviewed again, and maybe they skip it afterwards. But we really need to also have some room for innovation in Europe. So we should really think of starting the discussions maybe in that direction, And at the end of the day, our customers should be safe. So it's again about trust. So trust is everything for us, and the compliance as well. So I'm very much looking forward to also with you guys from Blockchain for Europe doing a great job here, educating the policymakers to go in the right direction. Yeah.
Thank you for the shout out, Christian.
Yeah, well, do I still have some time? Yeah. Okay, jumping in. I think, pretty much is education. I would say that's key on the supervisory side. Having the right tools. I cannot stop saying data-driven approach and risk-based supervisory approach, I think, is the best. For that, of course, you need the right tools. And then for the global spec, right? If we play above the bar, right, with high standards, I think we can be above the regulations. So by having very high-end tools that allows you to protect on the security side, on the compliance side, and also on the fraud side, which we haven't talked about. And with all that, yeah, I mean, if you play above, and you're not just playing at the edge just to tick the box that you do have something that complies with, then you can be safe.
Great. I think we can end on this positive note. Thanks so much to our panelists. Thanks to our audience for listening to our conversation. Thanks to Merge for giving us also a few extra minutes. I feel, of course, the need to close this off, send everybody to lunch, and keep an eye, of course, on MiCA and everything that is happening in Brussels and the work that we're doing with the European Union, because, of course, it's not over. There is a lot to do still, but it's great to have some great people that are doing that job for the crypto industry. So big round of applause. Thank you so much.
Thank you.